It's right now of considering an infrastructure program. In fact, I hope a series of infrastructure steps that meet the need that we are seeing in real time right here in West Haven and Connecticut and now along the East Coast. What we're seeing here is Exhibit A for infrastructure investment. Every problem is an opportunity. This opportunity and obligation now are to invest in the kind of resilience that can meet this kind of climate crisis. I was in West Haven just a short time ago. What I saw in West Haven was a mudslide, a washout, right adjacent to the tracks of Metro North, disabling one of those tracks so that it cannot be used, and when it will be usable is unknown right now. This mudslide is a picture that I'm going to be taking with me to Washington, D.C. as a powerful argument for action, and action now on resilience and infrastructure, not just short-term repair, but long-term resilience. Buttressing, reinforcing the tracks that carry literally thousands of commuters every day on Metro North is absolutely necessary. We need to buttress the track, but longer term, invest in infrastructure. And along those tracks, the hundreds of miles, are more of those same kinds of mudslides waiting to happen, more washouts that may be imminent if we face another similar storm. What we got here was a lot of rain in a short period of time. It wasn't a hurricane, but the kind of flooding that we've seen and also the other damage we have to use as a lesson for investing in infrastructure. The governor and I are absolutely united, as is our delegation, in favor of the kind of investment that is embodied in the bipartisan deal. The president's endorsed it. I hope we will move forward literally next week when we go back. This Monday, I'm going to be going back to Washington. I'm taking with me the picture of that washout, the mudslide that I saw here in West Haven, and the flooding that I've seen throughout the state today in Bridgeport, in the Stamford Greenwich area, and that I'm hearing about elsewhere. So I'm very hopeful that we'll have support from my colleagues and that we'll use this storm as a lesson in the need for infrastructure investment and resilience. And the governor has been absolutely steadfast and strong in support of this kind of investment, and I'll turn it over to him.
Right. Well, thanks, Dick. Here we are at the West Haven train station. The sun is coming out. Who would think we're here looking at the effects of a flash flood? Look, compared to a year ago when we had ICEA, there the winds were much stronger and a little less flooding. Many more electric outages, little less rain that time, less flooding. This time, less wind, less electric outages with Elsa, but flooding, and the flooding is severe. And we've seen the flooding, here affecting our rail. As you heard the senator say, just a couple miles down the road, a mudslide that has closed down at least one of the tracks for the near term. That's affected rail stations. That's affected, airports here across the state. It's a reminder that resilience is not an abstract. Resilience is how you keep our economy going and how you keep it going safely. And it's just ironic that it was earlier this week, there we were at the Guilford Beach talking about resilience, talking about what we tried to do at the state level. We had a pretty good plan going through the legislature. It got watered down, so to speak, but we ended up with a resilience plan. And this is a reminder that resilience is not an abstraction. It has meaning. Go down and look at what that mudslide means, see what it means across the board for people here in this state. I want to salute Dick Blumenthal and Chris Murphy and our entire delegation for the work they're trying to do on infrastructure. I think it's a reminder that it's about speeding up rail, but it's also reinforcing our infrastructure for the incredible climate changes that are affecting us. We're talking flash floods, and they're talking about scorching heat, drought, and on the West Coast. We've got to be prepared for this, and we're getting prepared. That's what the infrastructure bill is all about. And I really want to salute all the folks who are ahead of the curve in terms of taking care of this storm, making sure that we have folks on the ground, keeping our tracks safe, keeping our airports safe, and keeping you safe. Thank you for the efforts you put in.
Governor, what are you hearing about what's transpired across the rest of the state regarding flooding or other damage?
Yeah, as I said, fewer outages. Milford got hit pretty hard. A transformer went down there, a couple thousand people. They're getting that up pretty fast. Unlike last time, less tree damage, but maybe some underwater flooding, which impacts the transformers and the such in more of our urban areas. So I think that's been one of the effects. I think broadly speaking, we're going to go do an inventory right now of tracks and the such. That's what Jake and company are doing to make sure our infrastructure is safe, our transportation system is safe.
You believe that the violent storms we've had the last couple of days could have contributed to what transpired this morning here at these tracks because the ground was so saturated?
Yeah, exactly. The ground is so saturated. The trees reinforce. The trees are almost like a support structure. We don't have that right now. Look, I'm not an alarmist, but I do know that climate change is not an abstraction. Climate change, you're seeing it real. By the way, the hurricane season hasn't even begun yet, and we're doing this. Look what happened in Florida. They had a hurricane hit the West Coast. I don't think that's happened in many a decade. We got to be prepared.
Yeah, usually August, September.
That's right.
MTA says that, no delays, they inspected it and no issues. Were you okay with that decision with opening the train tracks fully?
My understanding is the train tracks aren't open fully. At least the track closest to the mudslide is not operational. My sense is that's appropriate, but we have experts who can opine on that.
Yeah, I think there's confusion which tracks are, because MTA says they're like everything's fully normal.
Well, so far there have been no significant delays on MTA. We called MTA, as you know, to get them out there, and they're still assessing what needs to be done. Clearly, there has to be buttressing of the tracks and some short-term work to make sure that those tracks don't collapse. But I was saying to the governor, we stood together to announce the governor's plan for straightening those tracks, and a lot of the $8 to $10 billion that are necessary. This kind of picture ought to convince the people of Connecticut we have no time to waste for safety as well as speed in reinforcing the railroad tracks here. And yes, there may be some temporary delays, but Metro North is operating by using 3 out of the 4 tracks. You can't continue that kind of
What'd you say,
I was filibustering so that we could have that go by for the count. But they are operating, and they're assessing the damage.
How lucky are we that nobody was hurt, that there wasn't a train going by when that mudslide hit?
Well, people want speed and they want safety, and they deserve both. We were fortunate, and frankly, the folks from the West Haven Public Works Department were on the ball. They were out there. That's why I went there. Lou Esposito, who's here, and his crew, McCarthy, and there were a bunch of others. It just shows you that local vigilance is so important. I spoke to Lou, that's why I went out there, because we were going to come to West Haven. They were on the ball, and they probably contributed importantly to making sure that there were no real catastrophes out there. But if you look, you'll see it when we go out there. The earth is crumbling as we speak right now, and to the governor's point, this country is heading for a real precipice, a real catastrophe. Yes, there might have been injuries or deaths at the wrong time out there in West Haven today, but all throughout our transportation system, there are accidents waiting to happen.
Governor, what is the procedure from here? You'll assess the situation, maybe Joe Giletti and MTA, you'll all sort of discuss where to go from
We've been
there.
getting together every few hours in the Emergency Operations Center up in Hartford. We have the utilities on the line. We have Department of Transportation on the line. We have DEEP on the line. We get a complete update. They have a heat map so we can see where the outages are, where the choke points are, where the risks are. I think they got things under control. I think we're doing better than we did a year ago.
I mean, from the track standpoint over here, is that strictly an MTA decision, or do you have some, weights?
My understanding is it's primarily MTA, Metro North.
Jake, can you
Jake?
step up just for the cameras at home? First and last name, spelling and title again.
First name Jake, J-A-K-E. Last name Manke, M-A-N-K-E. I am the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security Region 2 Coordinator.
I'm sorry, can you explain a little why you're here? Are you just for the West Haven landslide, or are you doing a larger survey of conditions?
So I'm responsible for 30 municipalities in the state of Connecticut, what is known as Demis Region 2. I support all the local municipalities who operate. So when there's something such as this, we at the agency will support the municipalities, sometimes with personnel and sometimes with logistic assistance.
So you came to West Haven specifically because of this landslide?
Correct. Thanks.
And you're going over to Bradley as well?
Bradley was actually a different region, so it would be a different coordinator, but West Haven and New
Tweed
Haven.
would be under your purview.
Correct. Yeah, Tweed and any of the areas between Milford, Old Saybrook, all the way as high as Meriden.
Have you been to Tweed yet?
Not yet as of this morning.
Has Sean Scanlon told you what transpired over there?
So the way the Emergency Management, Homeland Security in the state works, we support our local emergency managers. Routinely, we're in conversation with our local municipal emergency management departments. I have had several conversations with New Haven's emergency manager, Rick Fontana. We're aware of the different scenarios at the infrastructure within New Haven and supporting their requests as they bring them to our office's attention.
Are any lights affected?
As far as I'm aware of, not as of yet.
Governor, can we get you really quick on the new CDC guidelines for teachers and kids with masks?
I've just seen the top line on it. The CDC said, A, the emphasis upon the importance of everybody getting vaccinated. B, emphasis upon the importance of in-school learning. Nothing replaces the importance of in-school learning. Then we see the variants coming in, how that may affect the mask. I think right now they are leaning towards, if you're not vaccinated, wear the mask. And now we have to evaluate what our policies are going to be in Connecticut.
But the current policy is that kids have to wear masks in school.
Right now, our guidance is if you're unvaccinated, you should wear a mask indoor. That means the kids should wear a mask in school. Of course, nobody's in school for the next couple of months. We're going to look at that, and I think we'll look at what the infection rate is, certainly within each community, if not across the state, to make a final judgment.
Would it be a situation, Governor, where whether it's faculty, staff, or students, to make sure they're vaccinated, that they'll have to show a card or an app on their phone or something?
I don't think we're there yet. Right now, come on, teachers, everybody get vaccinated. That's you're all eligible. High school students, that 12 to 15-year-old group is less than 50% vaccinated. We've got plenty of time to get people vaccinated. And then Tony will figure out what we do for the younger age groups and how we verify that in the next month or so.
And how are we doing with the Delta variant?
I think compared to Missouri and Arkansas and Mississippi and Louisiana and those states that are less vaccinated means the Delta variant's accelerating faster there. Thank God, Connecticut, we have about 80% of our adults are vaccinated, so there are a lot fewer targets for the Delta variant. and we have a much lower Delta infection rate.
And
Keep
the
it up.
The good thing right now is hospitalizations and deaths.
Are still very low, thank God. But we still have pockets and communities where people are still reluctant to get vaccinated. And if this Delta variant doesn't remind you, I don't know what will.
Do we have any COVID numbers for today yet?
I haven't seen today, but as you know, we've been well below 1% for the last long period of time.
If the rest of the nation were doing as well as Connecticut, if the rest of the nation were doing as well as Connecticut, we would all feel a lot safer. If every governor were following what Ned Lamont is doing, we would all breathe a lot easier, and we'd all be a lot safer. And every day, literally, I'm dealing with colleagues who fail to recognize the importance of the kind of leadership that Governor Lamont has provided, and that the president has provided.
We're going to scoot over there real fast.
Hey Lou, can you say anything on behalf of what you encountered over there today? And first introduce yourself.
Lou Esposito, I'm the Mayor of Rossi's Chief of Staff. When I got on scene, the bank was still flowing mud and water from under the tracks. We tried to keep everybody away from it all. Called Amtrak immediately to get the trains.
That train is on that track.
Yeah. We called Amtrak and Metro North to try to get the trains stopped on the northbound side of the tracks, or at least slowed down. And we finally got through to them, had that happen, and then we had Amtrak, Metro North, and the track crews finally showed up on scene, and they were assessing the situation. When I left, we've cleaned up as much of the roadway as we can right now, but thank God someone reported it, and our public works crew was on the scene within 10 minutes of the first report of the mudslide.
What time was that?
It was around 9-ish, 9:30ish, up around that time. I didn't look at my watch to check the time. As soon as we got the call, we came down to meet Senator Blumenthal, took him over to the site, and then we heard that Governor Lamont was on his way down as well.
How dangerous was that situation?
From my estimation, I think it was very dangerous. That if it wasn't addressed sooner than later, that there might have been a worse scenario of where the track might have collapsed. But again, I'm only looking at it from the ground level. DOT, Amtrak, and Metro North were up on top of the tracks, and they had a better view of what was going on. So hopefully it stays safe, and they just keep the trains moving on, on or as close to time as possible.
What's the city standpoint? I know once that soil comes down, it hits city property. I mean, do you think more should be done immediately in short term instead of long term?
From the city side, we have to take our direction from Amtrak and Metro North. They are in charge of the tracks and all the way down to ground level. So they'll have their own crews coming in to assess what has to be done. They'll have to backfill everything, support the tracks that may be compromised. Again, I'm only speaking from what I've seen. I don't know how much sway there is in the track itself. So once Amtrak makes their determination, I'm sure that they'll make the announcement that there is no danger.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.